So, looking at the topic, did you think it was clickbait? Sony Monochrom? What's this guy talking about? Now, I know Sony does not make a monochrome, but you can make the Sony a monochrome. What do I mean by that? Here it is. This is a Sony Monochrom. It has a black and white sensor. Now, inherently, every digital camera has a monochrome sensor. There is a filter in front of it called the Bayer filter. You can read all about it. The Bayer filter is what gives the sensor its color. There are algorithms which convert signals into color, and that's how a sensor gets a color. So technically, if you remove the Bayer filter, pretty much every camera is a black and white camera. And that's what has happened to this guy. So the Bayer filter was removed. There's a company in Vancouver, Washington called Monochrom Imaging Services. They charge you about $1,200 to do this. And what they do is they remove the Bayer filter, thus rendering this sensor, a color sensor, a monochrome sensor. So if you cannot afford a Leica, and Leica is probably the only company which makes a full frame monochrome. Pentax makes an APS-C monochrome, phase one, which costs you a few $1,000,000. Well, exaggerating, but tens of thousands of dollars makes a monochrome, but that's medium format. So if you want a small mirrorless camera to be a monochrome camera, but not spend $6,000, then this is your answer. So now this is the Sony RX1R Mark II. It's a 42 megapixel sensor. It's got a Sonar Design Zeiss 35mm f2 lens. So it's a fixed lens. It's a compact little camera, as you see. It's smaller than the Leica Q2. So this is a fantastic option, and you really don't lose anything. I mean, because there is no color science, so it's all black and white, and it's just, shades of gray. So they're very, very, very similar to what you would get in a Leica. And I have compared this guy with my Leica Monochrom. This is the M11 Monochrom. So I did look at the files, and there's hardly anything to give or take. So this is your answer. Now, used, I think this camera you can get it for somewhere between $2,000 $2,500. The new is about $3,000 plus. So maybe that doesn't make too much sense, buying this new and then converting it, paying another $1,200. But if you already have it, pretty much any Sony camera, they do it. And there's a list of other cameras also that they convert. So if you already have one, or if you buy a used one for much cheaper than the new price and then convert it, then there you go. You have a monochrome camera without spending as much as you would for a Leica. Now, of course, the rangefinder feel is a whole different thing. So it's not just about the monochrome, it's about a rangefinder monochrome. So that's what Leica is all about, and that's why I love this one, the M11, and before this, the M9. But I really love this guy too. So the key question is, how does it perform? Having shot extensively for a month plus with this camera, I can safely say it's amazing. The files are beautiful, contrasty, the lens is very sharp right from f2, and the bokeh is really nice. Do I have any gripes? Yes, I do. The battery life. Oh my God, it's pathetic. It's one of those thin batteries, and if you're going to shoot a whole day, I'd recommend carrying at least 3 to 4 batteries. The Q2, Q3 have much better batteries, and even the M series now have amazing batteries with a long life. So batteries is one big problem. The other problem I observed is focus. Now, let's understand that this camera is at least a couple of generations older to the current generation of Sony cameras. So I have a Sony a7R V, which has the AI focus, and it's just snappy, amazing, recognizes people and catches on to the eye very quickly, and even when people are moving, it tracks and does not miss focus. But this camera, being 2 to 3 generations older, is not like that. So focusing is a little sluggish, and especially if you have moving objects, and if you use spot focus, then you cannot move the focusing point by touch. Now the Q2, the Q series, you can touch the screen and the focusing point will focus on that area and shoot. But that facility is not available in this. So you have to use the joystick to kind of move the focusing point and then get it to the right place and shoot. Now that's quite time consuming for an autofocus camera. And if you keep it on wide and let it select its own subject, most of the time it selects the closest subject, but sometimes it does get thrown off and ends up selecting something that you didn't wish for. Manual focus is really nice on this lens. One thing I observed also is that the highlights are much well preserved in this camera compared to any of the Leica Monochroms. Leica Monochroms have a tendency to blow highlights very quickly, but this camera preserves highlights to a large extent. I think the dynamic range is really nice. High ISO performance is also very good. Not that I shoot a lot of high ISO, just to test I shot it, and even at like 4000, 6400, it's possible. It's not fantastic, but it's possible. So what do you think about a monochrome for which you pay way less than a Leica, and which pretty much performs if not better, at least on par with a couple of quirks? Let me know in the comments, what do you think about it? Would you go for a modified Sony Monochrom?